Hello everyone, good morning and welcome back to Sports Today. So I would have joined you for this video a lot earlier. It's a bit of a disclaimer, but unfortunately we were interrupted by a massive bit of breaking news. In case you didn't know, Ajinkya Rahane is of course back in the Indian Test team. He will be part of the team that will be playing the World Test Championship final. Of course, we've done a full-on video on that. It's a big debate with a lot of guys there. If you haven't checked that out, I'd recommend you check that out. But for now, we'll focus on catching up on the all-important news that sometimes you tend to miss out on whilst you're catching up on sleep. And obviously, the world of sport never really sleeps. So keeping that in mind, we'll just take a look at some of the more interesting things that have been doing the rounds in the world of sport. Now, Sachin Tendulkar has been a source of, let's say, joy for a lot of people with the fact that he finally got to make his debut for MI. However, there has been a bit of criticism coming his way, especially after the last game. He ended up going for a few runs, and there's been a question mark over how quick he could be going forward. And obviously, there are going to be people who'd understandably say that, maybe he doesn't have the makings of an international bowler if he's only bowling at the pace he is. But one of the people who doesn't necessarily believe that is former Australia international Brett Lee. In fact, Brett Lee has given a bit of a, let's say, he made a pretty big claim, and he's also given some advice to Arjun Tendulkar. He said that, I know that Arjun can bowl at about 140 kilometers per hour. So as soon as he gets comfortable bowling in a team environment in front of the big lights and the big crowds, his pace will increase. I see no issues with his pace. I know how fast he can bowl. He's also gone on to say that anyone who criticizes Tendulkar's pace, in fact, probably doesn't quite have an understanding of how it is that rhythm and cricket works when it comes to fast bowlers. And he said that he should just block out the outside noise and focus on improving his game, because at 23 he really does have his whole career ahead of him, and according to Lee, he's only going to get better. Another player, a young player from the Mumbai circles, who unfortunately has not been having the greatest of times recently, is Prithvi Shaw. And in fact, he has found himself in the wrath of a rather, let's say, a bit of a brutal takedown by Simon Dool, who's actually questioned his fitness and questioned whether or not he's doing enough to actually get out of the rut of form that he finds himself in recent times. You'd remember that in last night's game where Delhi took on the Sunrisers Hyderabad and surprisingly won, Shaw was not featured in the squad at all. He didn't start in the playing 11, which pretty much indicated that he wouldn't be coming on as an impact sub, and he wasn't even named in the subs. So it's a bit of a fall from, let's say, a decline for him, especially considering just how poor he's been. And Dool has been pretty brutal. In fact, I'll read out the quote for you. He says that you can't continue down the same road if you're Prithvi Shaw. If things aren't working, you have to change it up, and he has to understand that where he is at in his game, it's just not good enough. There was an incident with the run-out situation in Bangalore with David Warner. He sat on the bench the whole time when Delhi were fielding and did nothing. And later, when he came out to bat, he was lazy with the running. These little things in the game can come back to haunt you at times. He's had a very poor season. I don't think he's overly fit. I don't think he has really adjusted his game as such, and he has paid the price. Oof. Anyhow, switching our focus from Arjun Tendulkar and, of course, Prithvi Shaw to Sachin Tendulkar. And you remember that yesterday was Sachin's 50th birthday, and he had a gate at the Sydney Cricket Ground named after him. Not to be left behind, Sharjah, the iconic cricket stadium where Sachin played many a good knock, has also had the west stand of that stadium has now been renamed the Sachin Tendulkar stand, and it was done so in honor of course, Sachin reaching the milestone of his 50th birthday, and it was done so in a ceremony which was held at Sharjah. So another nice little tribute, you can say, for Sachin Tendulkar, great one, and I'm sure tributes will continue pouring in even as, the 50th birthday is gone, but we don't really need much reason to be paying tribute to the greatest batsman who ever lived. Switching our focus now from the world of cricket to the world of football, we're set for the end pretty much of the Indian domestic football season, because later this evening, you'll be seeing the final of the Super Cup. Now, of course, the Super Cup is India's main domestic football knockout cup, and this time the final is going to be contested by Bangalore FC and Odisha FC. Now, for Bangalore, it's been a pretty good season in terms of, they've made it to 3 of the 3 major finals. They made it to the final and won the Durand Cup. They made it to the final of the ISL, but lost out to ATK, or rather, should I call them Mohan Bagan Super Giants, in the final. You can call them that now since that's what they're officially named. And they've now made it to the final of the Super Cup as well. Of course, they weren't able to be crowned ISL champions, but they will, of course, be hoping that they can win the Super Cup, finish the season on a high. It's been a very good season for them, but having just the Durand Cup to show probably wouldn't be enough. Winning the Super Cup does also have the added advantage that if they can win the Super Cup, or if Odisha win the Super Cup, they'll get into the playoffs of qualifying for the AFC Cup. So that's another added bonus for both of these teams. Switching from, let's say, domestic football or Indian football to international football, and there's two major news. One is that Chelsea's managerial or vacant managerial position could very well be filled by Maurizio Pochettino. He seems to be the odds-on favorite to take over at this point, and there is a feeling that it's going to be a case of when it's confirmed rather than if it's confirmed. That's if you believe local news reports in England and London. And it's an interesting time, really, and it's especially an interesting time considering that Pochettino's former club, Spurs, find themselves in one crisis after another, just like Chelsea. In fact, Spurs, you'd remember, lost 6-1 to Newcastle United, and what has the fallout of that been? The fallout is that Christian Stellini, who was, of course, placed in interim care after Antonio Conte was sacked, has also now been sacked, and they have a new caretaker manager in Ryan Mason, who, of course, filled that role in the 2020-21 season, when Jose Mourinho was in fact sacked from the role. So it's the second stint as caretaker for Mason. The aim at this point would be to finish the season as strongly as possible before, of course, Spurs end up naming their next manager, whoever that may be. We'll end with a little bit of tennis news. And if you're a fan of Tunisia's Ons Jabeur, then a little bit of a concern. She unfortunately will not be taking part in the Madrid Open, where she was in fact the defending champion, because she's withdrawn from the tournament due to an injury. Now, of course, that's never great, and you don't want players actually pulling out of tournaments just before a major Grand Slam is coming. And don't forget, it's clay court season. French Open will be coming our way soon. You'd hope that the injury with Jabeur is not too serious. She did reveal that it's just a little tear in the calf, which means that as a precautionary measure, she'll be pulling out of this. You'd hope that it's just that, and that she'll be fit and firing come the French Open. And that's it from us from this edition of the morning, or in this case, afternoon overnight news update with Sports Today. Thank you guys so much for joining us. As always, if you enjoy our work over here at Sports Today, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap that bell icon, leave us a comment, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and don't forget to download the Sports Tech app as well. Plus, if you're already on the channel, go ahead, check out some other videos that we've put up. For now, from my side, goodbye.